Hello, it worked. It's been too long. The worst thing about doing this is when you don't do one for a couple of weeks, you just assume everything's going to break. So hopefully you can see and hear me all right, guys, and everything is running smoothly your end. I hope you're having a good weekend. So sorry we took a couple of weeks off. Lots to update you on before we are bringing our guest in a bit. Great to see Lauren in chat. Sorry, I hope you're good. Hope you're good, Nia. Anyone I missed while the intro was running, welcome in. If you're new here, first of all, hello. Please do say hello in chat. We always like knowing what part of the world people are watching from. It's always sort of like an interesting way that we start the show. So please do let us know what part of the world you're watching from. And that will be quite relevant tonight, given that we've probably got the closest guest we've ever had to me on the show later. We practically could have done it in the same room. So thank you for confirming there. We had a couple of weeks out. For anyone that hasn't or wondered where we've been, does anyone notice if I go away? Actually, don't answer that. If anyone hasn't noticed, we've been away. It's been a bit busy. We were busy at Chelmsford winning public service awards, and Nia Cheeks got to join me for once. So guys, I don't give Nia Cheeks enough of a shout out on YouTube. She gets lots of love over on Twitch, but my long suffering wife, who when we go live at these, it's the same time as Dylan's bedtime, so she is currently probably reading Dylan a bedtime story whilst moderating chat and saying hello in chat and generally answering questions and things, and keeps his whole show on the road. So it was awesome that she got to have a night out. Oh, she might disagree having a night out with me. She might have preferred a night at home on her own. But that was good fun. We won a public highly commended public service award, which is awesome. So thank you for the people that nominated us for that. And then at the start of the week, I was in Brussels giving a talk at a hidradenitis suppurativa. I'm well impressed. I can still remember how to say that and pronounce it properly. Talk. They're a patient partnership talk where I was talking about what there was food. I was happy. Where I was talking about, what my lived experience was like and why I advocate globally, which was an awesome opportunity. So lots of busy stuff, guys. And just to warn you, June is going to be very much like that, where we're going to have to take a bit of a break from the stream. And I think Nia's starting to come more round to the idea of streaming in my absence. So watch this space. It'd be awesome. I don't think I'll ever get them doing YouTube interviews, but maybe over on Twitch. And if you guys aren't aware, we also stream over on Twitch where we do computer game stuff, where we don't do all the important talk that we do here tonight. We use it purely for escapism and distraction and to act as a bit of a peer support. If you want to know more about that, scan that code you can see on screen there, or type out the letters if you like, causing yourself more work in some weird way. Scan that code on your phone, go to our Discord server, completely free to join, and you'll see a full list of all the stuff that we do across multiple platforms. I'll leave that on screen there for a little bit so anyone can grab it if they want to grab it. But just to show you the strength of our community now, guys, and how awesome this whole thing has grown, is that in 2 weeks time we're meeting up in Brighton. I won't be too specific because we don't want any internet randoms turning up. For our third community meetup. We met up, had a community social in Norwich. We then had one in Birmingham, and our next one's in Brighton. And these are all people that you either see here in chat or you'll see over on Discord or on our Twitch streams. You listen to the podcast, etc., providing in-person socialization, peer support to one another. It's nothing official. We don't book nothing. We just say, right, this is where we're going to be, time and the place. Everyone throws their ideas into the rings. We do pubs and bars and restaurants and bowling and various stuff. I think the wackiest thing we've done so far is axe throwing, which was interesting. It brought out a competitive edge in some people I didn't know they had. So anything like that, basically where people can come together despite their condition, despite their pain, whatever it might be, and caregivers as well, and they don't have to explain or justify, or if they have to leave early, and we build breaks into the days and all that sort of thing. So if that's something you want to get involved in for future ones, it's probably too late for this one, because we do like to only extend the invites to people we know. Obviously we've got to try and keep people safe, but join our Discord, get involved, start turning up to live live streams, and then and we're even working on a US one, aren't we, Lauren? We're even working on a US one this year. I'm trying to tie it into, and I'm already going over there. We've got a couple of irons in the fire with applications we've put out there for speaking engagements. If any of those get accepted, then we will build a community meetup around that, given that half of our community are based in the US. So I'm trying to accommodate everyone. It's difficult. It's difficult. I'm trying. So hopefully we can do that in this year. That'd be nice to tick off a different country. Technically, we had a community meetup in Singapore, but that was kind of cheating since it was only open to people that are involved in the Animal Crossing project we did. But I'm claiming that we had one overseas meetup in Singapore, but we'll try and do US this year to try and keep our folks over in the States happy. You can argue amongst yourselves what coast it is or what, if I just get there, the rest is up to you guys. You'll have to work that bit out. But we're trying to work on that. So it's been a really busy couple of weeks, guys, but we're back up to full speed now. We've got some awesome guests coming up. Obviously starting tonight with Craig, who you'll get to learn a lot more about in a moment. But we've also got various people from patient organisations coming to see us. So we've got people from the Global Ankylosing Spondylitis Axial Spar Disease charity organisation, as if who are joining us. We have the founder of the antimicrobial resistance charity, the lady that founded that, who campaigns for sort of like the overuse of antibiotics and things like that, or against the overuse of antibiotics, I should say. We've got that coming up. Those of you who were here last May, right, remember we had Amanda Green from LA, the lupus lady. She'll be rejoining us this May. So lots of awesome stuff coming up on the show, guys. Thank you for bearing with me while we took a couple of weeks out. I still burnt myself out, but I would have burnt myself out even more if I didn't take a break. Speaking of breaks, my voice is going to take a little bit of warming up after 2 weeks out. So, guys, should we meet our guests? I feel like I've kept them waiting too long already. So you know the drill by now, but if you're new here, guys, basically chat gets merged into one, but we take the chat off screen when we do the interview to keep everyone safe. Therefore, you will only see the chat messages with the other people you're watching with on your platform. If you're chatting on Facebook, you'll only see other Facebook messages. If you're chatting on YouTube, you'll only see other YouTube messages. You can see in chat already from the red logos that most of our people watch us are on YouTube, or at least talking at the minute are on YouTube. So if you want to get involved there, find us at Joel vs Arthritis on YouTube, where you can watch this live. And I will feature the best comments and questions. So guys, support each other. It's not rude if you're asking each other questions or helping each other whilst we're interviewing. You know, you're such a respectful bunch, and chat goes really quiet during the interviews. But it doesn't help us. YouTube hates a quiet chat and won't show us to new people. But ultimately, we are a peer support community first and foremost, guys. So don't feel like you have to go really quiet when we're having the interview, but I will feature the best comments and questions related to the conversation that we're having. But for now, chat will go off screen. I'm so out of practice. I've got to remember how to do all this. Music will go off as well, so we don't ruin the interview. And guys, I think I probably left them waiting long enough. So tonight, on this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Craig Young, who is probably the closest a guest I have ever had on the show. In that we could literally do this in the same room. Craig, welcome onto the show. I hope you're well.
Hello, yeah, I'm great. Yeah, thanks, Joel, for having me. Yeah, I had no idea how close you were until we caught up just before this. Literally could run out of my house, appear in your room, and come back.
I knew
But
you were
yeah,
in
there
the
we go.
same part of the world, but yeah, we literally, guys, we were
I'm
chatting
not that close.
beforehand and realized we were less than probably 2 miles apart, which is, it's just mad.
Amazing,
So yeah, I feel
amazing.
very rude doing this remotely now. I feel like I should have brought a microphone and sat in a coffee shop with you somewhere. But thank you, thank you very much for joining us. So Craig, obviously we met over social media, and we'll dig deep into your sort of like autoimmune disease and journey and everything else. But do you want, just for anyone that's not come across you or is the first time they're sort of hearing you speak, because I believe it's probably the first time you shared your story on a place like this. Do you want to just give a sort of high level overview of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, so yeah, my name's Craig Young. I live here in Norfolk in the UK. I'm originally from Nottingham, hence why I don't sound like Joel. I've got a bit of a different accent. I've been in Norfolk for since 2010. I've had immune conditions since 2011, and pre that led a very sort of active life. And then since having immune conditions, I've been quite a bit of an advocate, but more so sort of in the workplace space, not really publicly. To be honest, to say, as you mentioned, this is sort of my first for all, publicly, and on like my own socials and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's me. I mean, yeah, I think probably with a lot of people who are listening to this, someone who's been just, for years trying to get to grips with what all this means, physically, mentally, trying to understand it all, different pathways, tips, advice, what's right, what's wrong, there's loads of stuff.
It can
So
be a bit of a
yeah,
minefield.
yeah, that's yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's me. And I think the one thing I'd say about me is that I massively try to just, I mean, before having this, I should say, um, I was really active sport wise. I used to play like football twice a week. I did sports science at uni. Like my dad, was a pro footballer years
Oh, wow.
ago. My mum was very active. My sister was very active. So basically came from a very sort of active background. And as I'm sure like yourself and many people can understand, like when something like this comes along and you're sort of that way inclined, it can just have such a massive impact on your life because, mentally things change, socially things massively change. And then, physically things change. So I think for me, since once I got diagnosed, which was in 2011, I've been figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and as I think a lot of people can attest to, each day is just wildly different. So yeah, for me, I've just been getting to grips with what works, what makes me feel better, what can be too much, and what can be too little. So yeah, a big passion of mine is sort of sport and exercise, and how that can, I guess benefit me and people like me with similar conditions, Joel.
Yeah, no, no, I really look forward to digging into that because people that have been here before will know that I came from that sort of active background, and then it took me a lot of years. I think a lot of this that you see here today is a product of me grieving and getting over that, and like trying to find a
Yeah, yeah.
different path. So yeah, I look forward to talking about that. And I must say as well, on behalf of the audience, I think we feel very lucky that you chose here, I suppose, to be the first place you sort of done a live sharing of your story. So thank you, because yeah, I think compliments to our live audience. It probably says like that people feel sort of safe here. So it's a good job, everyone. And yeah, and you speak brilliantly, Craig, and your audio is amazing. So thank you for a first time sort of sharer. That really doesn't come across. So thank you.
No, and I should say, Joel, I think the reason for that is, I've listened to you for quite a while. Just, when I'm trying to get in the gym, do a bit of exercise, or on the bus on the way to work, I'll stick, your podcasts on or watch it back on YouTube. And for me, just a big thanks because I think, and again, I'm sure a lot of people will say the same. When you get diagnosed with something like this, you're just kind of on your own, right? And I think you're given a few pamphlets in hospital or wherever it is. You're given these diseases on these pamphlets with these long words that you can't even say when you when you first see them, let alone understand what they are, let alone then find people who are sort of in the same boat. So yeah, just big thanks to you, Joel, and everyone that's involved in, and supported you along the way, because this is a really great arena. And, I was on a look the other day just to how much content you've got, and the broad spectrum of immune conditions you've covered. I sort of think this is a really lovely space to, come and listen to people who, are suffering from similar conditions and sort of, give tips and advice and just make it obvious that, you're not on your own,
I really
really.
appreciate it. I'm trying to get better accepting comments. I've done this for a long while, feeling like a bit of a fraud, and I didn't know what to do. And I'd make some joke, and my head was already going to like making a joke about you going past my house on a bus listening to the podcast and how weird that could be. but no, we like I say, it is I really appreciate it because it keeps me going. Like we keep doing it because there's only so many times like this week I shared my story overseas, and it just reminded me like, yeah, I've told this so many times now, and there comes a point where that loses impact. So I think the value of what we do here, to have somebody like yourself who's never done this before and share that, you just don't know who's going to listen. That first time, that person who's just been diagnosed, and maybe even somebody who's been diagnosed for years but not felt like they related to anyone, or saw themselves in somebody else's story. And it can make a huge difference to the help people get and also the way they manage their condition. So thank you very much for your kind words. And for anyone watching this live or listening to this back will know how far I've come and been able to take that compliment. So I'm quite proud of myself. So I feel like um deflecting away from me. I feel like I'm quite embarrassed in that we've talked a lot on social media, and you've been a massive support to me on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days and everything. But I'm a little bit embarrassed in that I don't understand fully the ins and outs of like your journey. Because I understand you've got a couple of conditions. So do you want to maybe take us right back to the
Yeah,
beginning and let us know how that sort of presented and what that looked like?
yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, so I guess previously, just to say again, going back to me being active. So pre 2010, I lived in Nottingham. I was playing football on Saturdays and Sundays, 11 aside, playing all of whole manner of gym, running, just all the time. That was sort of my life, right? And then in 2010, I relocated to Norfolk because I met my lovely wife a couple of years before that, and relocated to this nice part of the world. And then when I moved here, I was doing a master's degree.
Mhm.
So I made the decision basically not to carry on playing football for a bit, just to do my masters, but kept fit, with a view to then the following season getting involved in football. So in about the February March time of 2011, I remember going out for a run, and then a couple of days later, my right hip had a load of pain in it. Never had that pain before, and I couldn't think that I'd strained anything, or when you play sport, it's quite obvious when you
Yeah.
pull something or
Yeah.
whatever. There was none of that. And I went to the GP and said, "Look, I've done this," and they said, "Okay, we'll refer you for physio." But they said by the time you get into the physio, that's probably going to have cleared up, cleared
I've
itself up.
heard that so many times before.
Yeah. But then actually what happened, and this was literally within a matter of weeks, it was probably 4 weeks from that first, pain in the right hip. Pain had gone into left hip. I had pain in my chest, pain
Mhm.
in my spine, and then pretty much most of my toes as well. Um, and I basically was going back to the GP. Quite scary, right? You got no
Yeah,
idea
you
what's
must see
going
what the
on.
hell's
You're just
happening.
in pain. Yeah, and considering as well, because I've done sports science at uni, and
Yeah.
we've done modules where we covered different, conditions and all that sort of stuff. I'll be honest, hold my hands up. Never heard or was appreciative of anything like this. So obviously I didn't know what was going on really, other than I was in quite a lot of pain. And probably the most alarming thing was pain in the chest, which obviously
Yeah.
now I know is costochondritis, right?
You
And
pronounced that very well. I always struggle with
a
that.
lot of practice, mate. Um, but at the time I had no idea. So I'm going into the GP and saying, I've got this pain in my chest. I had one GP say to me, this is all in your head. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with you. Which, when you've gone from, playing all that sport to then you've got all this stuff that's just happening to you and no one's really giving you, any indication as to what's going on, I was pretty upset, pretty
Yeah.
emotional because this was entirely, so frustrating. But in
And
essence,
those
basically,
comments stick with you as well. As someone that was
oh
a kid
yeah,
with arthritis, and I had to go the first year or two with people saying, "Watch him when he doesn't know you're looking, and see if he's still limping," and all this sort. You
yeah,
spend years sort of thinking, "Oh, am I like dramatizing this? Am I a fraud? Am I struggling? All that sort of
yeah,
thing."
yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
sticks with you, doesn't it?
No, no, yeah, it's not very nice at all. But in essence, I had repeated GP appointments over. It must have been about nine months, I think it was,
Yeah.
Joel. Then in the end, what happened was, a lovely young lady I'd never seen before, who sort of like a standing GP. Because at the time I had all this pain, and also I had the tiniest spot of psoriasis on the back of my head. It basically felt
Okay.
what it reminded me of, and again, I didn't realize that was psoriasis. What it reminded me of was a teenager. When you got spots, sometimes you used to get them like in your scalp or on your head. I
Yeah.
just assumed, I'm getting a rogue spot in my sort of 20s. But anyway, she said, "Oh, I think that might be psoriasis." And then she asked the question, "Have you got any family history of psoriasis?" To which I
Right.
said, "Oh, actually, I had grandparents on sort of both sides that had it." I'll be honest, that's kind of all I knew. I didn't know as to what level or anything. And she said, "Okay, well, I think it's this. I'm going to refer you to psoriatic arthritis. I'm going to refer you to the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital here." And then within, I think it was like something like 10 days. It was really quick.
Oh wow.
Got an appointment. Yeah, and there's another thing I was going to touch on. Like back when I got diagnosed, the amount of time, the
Support
time
was
it
there.
took. Oh yeah, unbelievable. Versus, we won't get political, but versus now,
Hmm.
it's completely different, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically within about 10 days, 2 weeks, I then had that appointment with the rheumatologist. My wife came with me, which I'm glad she did because I was a bit of a mess, to be honest, sort of coming out. But like walking in, literally within a matter of minutes, she was like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely this, no shadow of a
Yeah.
doubt." And she said to me, "Right, we're now going to quickly start you on drugs," because she was very alarmed at actually how quick it had gone from standing
Yeah, I
start
must. Yeah,
to
that that
where
was
it had got,
rapid.
like literally within a month, right? And
Yeah,
then after that month, it's it started going into other places, and where it was sort of getting worse. But so anyway, yeah, that was sort of my diagnosis journey. So it was a very sort of traumatic 9 months, really. And at the time as well, I say I was sort of new to Norfolk. I'd started a new job, so I was balancing a new job and this, and when you're not even sure what's going on yourself, it's quite hard to communicate with work. Like,
yeah,
are you poorly? Are you sick? You're in pain? Like, you obviously not
yeah.
experienced this before, so it's quite hard to sort of,
And
even you don't
employers
know.
struggle with these conditions at the best of time when we've got a diagnosis
Yeah.
and a label. So trying to explain what was happening to you must have been a nightmare the first month or two.
Yeah, that was horrendous. But yeah, so that was basically sort of that, first 9 months, year, and going linking back to the sort of active side of stuff. At that point, I was struggling to walk. So, quickly gone from 2 games of 11-a-side
Yeah.
football a week to, within a year, really, to then you're not being able to walk. So, and the sort of
I think,
advice I was
just
given,
sorry to interrupt you, I think that's
no,
such an important point as well for anyone that's listening to this that doesn't understand the nature of the disease. Like you can't put your head in that space where you go from that position to
no,
struggling to walk, and then the way you have to adjust mentally to all of that is nobody prepares you for that, and there isn't really any support, is there? Unless you got something
no.
I didn't know about.
No, no, you're right. There's not. You're sort of given, a few leaflets, and I say, luckily my wife was there at the time because, I was quite an emotional sort of wreck, really, because, the consultant said to me, "We're going to put you on some treatment," which was methotrexate tablets, was the lovely one I
Yeah, yeah, I
started
remember that
on.
as a kid. Yeah,
Yeah, and she sort of said to me, if this doesn't work quickly, you could end up in a wheelchair within, a matter of months. So, again, trying to digest
yeah,
all that, looking back to, a few months ago, I'm running around like a headless chicken to now, I could be in a wheelchair in a few months. Now, luckily for me, started on methotrexate, and I mean that took probably a good 6 months to actually work.
yeah.
But then that did
But
start
when
to
it
work.
works, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And then that's when I gradually, and this is for me, I think something I was going to talk about was once I then got on that, and pain was still there, right? But I was better than, I was not at that 11-a-side football sort of
yeah,
each week, and I wasn't in, extreme pain, somewhere sort of in the middle that floated and was, tolerable. But the big thing for me was, and because I was advised not to exercise because of how bad it was then, right, you're almost starting again. What can I do? What can't I do?
yeah,
But I
yeah,
didn't I didn't jog for a long time, for example. Um, would just be doing like cross train, a very light
yeah.
exercise, like would go and swim, and I barely ever swam before that. My only experience of swimming really was going with mates down the leisure centre and going on the slides. Like, so,
Yeah.
you sort kind of what, I think you touched on it, Joel, like you do grieve, I think. Like you have to quickly adjust to what is your new level of like what you can do. And it's not just, I mean, I'm talking about exercise, right? But there was a massive impact sort of on my social life because, I probably like anybody enjoyed nights out, and I used to love going out with friends, and we'd be out dancing all night. Quite quickly, when you got arthritis in your feet, that sort of thing doesn't
That
happen when
foot
you.
pain's horrendous.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're on methotrexate as well, like you can't drink.
Yep.
So socially, and at the time, I'm sort of mid mid 20s. Like friends are getting married, they're having stag do's and that sort of stuff. I mean, luckily, I had a great bunch of mates who, when we're on stag do's, like this always sticks in my mind just to think how nice people can be. Where like people would buy shots, right, and they'd buy whatever, but then there'd be like a lemonade shot. Just, you know what
Oh,
I mean?
that's
Just
awesome. Yeah,
so
yeah,
like I've been quite lucky that I've got very good friends, like lovely family, and very supportive. And then for me, work wise, albeit, back when I got diagnosed, I didn't know what was going on, let alone, try and get something from them. I think once I got diagnosed, like my path at work has been amazing. I've had great, managers and stuff who have really tried to understand it and have given me a bit of a platform in work to sort of talk
That's
like
amazing.
this, just to try and, you know, educate people that, this is, there's plenty of stuff out there that impacts people. And it's not just joint pain, right? It's all the everything else that goes with it.
I can relate. There was literally, I had about 18 questions go through
Oh,
that, so I'm not going to remember everything. No, just so relatable. Like the stag do, as somebody that had to go on their own stag do on me for Trexate and be sober. And I
yeah, yeah,
told my brother that I wanted to go to Barcelona. I was like, let's do some culture since I can't drink. And they took me to Magaluf. And it was horrendous doing that sober. But like I say, if you've got people around you, it makes a big difference. And I think where I
yeah,
struggled, like, and I share this, I know it's not about me time, but I share this for anyone else listening. It's like, I tried to hide it all. I come from that sport and background where I was worried about
yeah,
being judged and competitive background, that sort of thing. And then the trouble is when you then went on those those events where people are throwing drink at you, or what are you not drinking for? And you get called all sorts of names, that typical sort of alpha male culture thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't help yourself. So I think your example is really important because you clearly done the complete opposite to the way I tried to handle it, and then it all come crashing down, And so it's so nice to hear about work and friends and things like that being supportive. I really appreciate you sharing that.
No, yeah, and that's probably, I mean, I've probably always been quite an open person. Like my family always were, my parents always were, and I think as such, I have been like pre having this. And I think that's definitely made a massive difference. I think just from, yeah, you're right. That's definitely one thing I would advise if if people are comfortable to is being open, and just talking to friends and family and in the workplace, because I think from doing so, I've met a number of people along the way who have got something similar or have got this, and I think there's a lot to be said for just talking to people who have got a similar thing, right? Just even if it's just
Yeah,
to share tips and advice, or just that, to what you said, Joel, like that understanding of what you're going through sort of day to day, and how sometimes just to get to work is a massive
yeah,
challenge
yeah.
versus
People don't see that side, do they?
no,
They
you
don't see the
sort of
hours that go in beforehand.
no, like but when this has been bad, for me, so I was on methotrexate for a few years. I started to fail, and I had a real battle trying to get off it and get onto other stuff,
Yeah,
to try and basically prove to get on biologics. And the problem for
yeah.
me was I've never had any visible swelling, and that was one of the little tick
Yep.
boxes to
Yeah,
get
tell
on
me
it.
about it. I literally was crying on the ultrasound guy's bed, begging him to find something because mine's the same.
Yeah,
So nowadays it's really easy. My fingers go knobbly and my toes go fat. And
yeah,
but when I was in my 20s, just didn't show in blood tests or anything. And I've got the same sort of condition with a few tweaks and differences as you. And yeah,
yeah.
it's horrible that we're trying to jump through those gates to get access to these things that can make such a big
Yes.
difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that was horrendous time for me. That was probably, a few years after I had a good ride for a few years. Be on me for Trek sake. But when that happened, like I really struggled to walk. Like in the morning, getting downstairs, like clinging on to the sort of banister to sort of, get down. And
Yeah, yeah,
to even get to the bus stop, like I bought like a push scooter, because
yeah, yeah.
like I wouldn't have been able to walk to the bus stop. I mean, that sounds crazy, probably to
No, but
you know,
it paints that picture that people need to see, that stark contrast, and then how quickly you have to adjust. And I don't know about you, but the thing I always find as well, which I think we need to improve on, and if your experience was different, please say, is that like
yeah,
nobody prepares you for when then the treatment stops working. So I went on methotrexate
yeah,
as a 14-year-old, and it was
wow, yeah,
great. And for 10 years, apart from being a bit sick occasionally, it was fine. Methotrexate gets a bad rap, but when it works, it works. And then suddenly I get to my mid 20s and it just stops, and I was like, oh right, so what are the options then? And so why are we not having those conversations? Right, Craig, we're going to put you on this, but if that doesn't work, this is what
yeah.
it'll look like, and this is what stage two will be. And that sort of thing is mad.
No, 100%, mate. No, exactly the same. There was there's none of that for me. It's sort of, yeah, just when it happens, and from what I've found is you have to sort of flag that yourself, right? And
Yeah, you
you
do.
don't have appointments often enough to pick that up. So, you're having to be, really proactive to sort of push that. but yeah, there was times for me when it was an absolute nightmare trying to just get into the office. Coming back at lunchtime, my feet would probably then be sort of semi all right. And
Yeah.
the issue I had was that went on for quite a while, which then has left sort of permanent damage in my feet now. So now I'm okay, like in terms of inflammation. It's sort of kind of under control at the minute, and has been for a while. So I can, go running and stuff like that. But because of that permanent damage now, I can't go as far as I would have done,
Yeah.
years ago. It just,
Yeah.
prevented it. So that's really frustrating, is that there's sort of
Yeah,
that
that
damage
takes some
there.
getting over as well, doesn't it? That take because the goalpost moved. Good
Yes.
pun there, not intentional. But you know what I mean. They move, and the whole time I talk about this to my wife. It's like you're trying to work out: is it because I'm unfit? Is it because I'm getting older, or is it because this
Yeah.
disease is kicking my ass and I need to try and it's so hard to work out what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, no, really hard. And like whenever like if we go out as a family or anything, we're on our feet for a long time. My feet then really hurt, and I'm sort of
Yeah,
checking in with my wife saying, are your feet hurting or not? And she goes,
yeah.
yeah, and I think, oh, that's all right. Like it's because we
But you
walk
probably
quite
haven't
or
gauged that yours is like really, really
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
we're not good at doing that, or we
No,
in our life with these diseases, we get that thing where I'll say, I'll try and say, oh, my back hurts, and someone will say, yeah, I get a bit of sciatica, and you're
yeah,
like, oh, for God's sake, and it's that kind of everyone's got something they can relate it to, and and I think that's why it's really important when you're talking about that dramatic, the speed of it, and what
yeah.
happens when stuff doesn't work, and and how it affects just simple things like going on stag do's and so I think they're really important things for us to share because it's what separates it from a bit of a bad back or a bit of a sore knee.
Yeah, 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 and it's just that ongoing, it's always there in your mind, right? Whether it be, you got to think, oh, I've got to have a blood test, or I've got to
Yeah,
remember to take my meds, or,
pace
like,
yourself and all that. I've got this thing coming up in 4 days, so I better
yeah,
not go.
exactly. So, like, like the amount of times I've either gone away with work or gone away with family, I think, oh, actually, I might hold off taking my immunosuppressant just for a few days, just because I don't want to run the risk of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
picking up,
totally.
picking
You're
up
going to
what.
that kids party and you're thinking, yeah, I ain't done my biologic a day before that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Germ fest. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, so I think that's really important. I just wanted to come back to you mentioned your wife a couple times of peer support, and like
Mm,
it's a bit of an issue where not everybody agrees, but like I'm one for saying like, I think you create your own peer support. And I touched upon it earlier where like I wasn't very open, but then I complained I had no peer support. And but why would I? Because I didn't let people in. You've clearly
yeah,
been a lot more open and you talk about it at work and everything else. Therefore, you're getting that support. So I don't know. I just before we moved on to other things, I thought it might be
yeah,
important that we touch a bit more upon that sort of peer support and how important that role sort of played and your partner and also I suppose it's also worth mentioning. It affects them as well. We
yeah.
probably don't in bigger support circles. We don't talk about caregivers and that enough. They have to adjust and grieve a little bit as well, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And it has a big. You're right. It has a massive impact on them. You probably know as well as me the amount of times where you can't go out of bed in the morning, or you just need to lay down for a few hours. So we've got young kids, right? So what does that mean? It
Yeah,
means your other half's got to lean into that. Um, so yeah, I would say, yeah, but just being open, for me has meant that almost in every circle of my life, I've got that support and people who do just ask like how you are. But also people who are but I think it makes people inquisitive as well, because people don't understand it. So they sort of ask, I've had people say to me, "Is like, is there ever a day you're not in pain?" So shows to sort of fully um,
yeah,
thinking about it. But yeah, for me, just being open has meant that I've had, you know, all that support in sort of all avenues of life, Joel. And the other thing I would say, sort of from being open, is that, and it's quite a specific example, but one thing that I've found through being open is here locally, there's a group of people who just hire out a football pitch once a week, and it's for people with various conditions. So
oh right, okay,
so it's spot on. So there's people there who have had like cardiac things. There's people who it's all ages, right? And
I'm already in the back of my mind thinking, why are you saying this? Because I'm now going to go downstairs and my wife is going to be literally waiting with the diary in front of us and book it in. You have no excuses anymore, John.
no, no. So, and it's, but I think from being open, it sort of opened those doors, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Um, and it's lovely because, one week I could go down there and I feel not fine, but new fine, not old fine, if you know what I mean. So I can do a bit of running and run around and, love it. Versus other weeks I'm in pain, I feel I'll still go, but actually it might be a bit more walking football for me. But
I love that.
at least I'm sort of still out. So yeah, I think from being open, that's a specific example, but it sort of opens those doors. Now, the only thing I was going to touch on, Joel, was that like pre-COVID, I wasn't open like with my kids, I would say, and
Yeah,
I think for me that was because I think looking back to when I was younger, you see your sort of parents and family as sort of invincible, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You never know sort of if there's anything, and looking back, there probably was, but they don't share that. So I hadn't really ever shared what was going on with sort of my kids until then COVID happened, and then you're on this lovely shielding vulnerable list,
Mm, yeah, that was a
which
shock to the system.
yeah, and at the time, it meant our kids could have gone to school as key worker because of my wife's work. But the sort of advice from the hospital was for me was like, if you can not get him to go to school. And luckily for me, it works. I work at Aviva. They were amazing where they made it so that you could basically I could work just a couple of days a week and still get my salary, which meant the kids didn't have to go to school. But I guess what I had to do at that point was, and this probably affected me quite a lot. Obviously, one, it's lockdown, and you sort of that classification that you're vulnerable, which to be honest, I don't think I'd ever really considered. But then opening up to your kids to try and explain this, and for me, it was a bit disheartening because you're not that invincible person that you sort
Yeah,
of want to portray a little bit. And then since then, bless them, they sort of they try and understand it, I guess, as much as kids can. But so yeah, I'd say just be as open as you can if you're comfortable to, and it's opened a number of doors for me, and I've met numerous people who are in a similar boat.
yeah, and I must admit, since I've done it, it's changed everything. I say I wouldn't be here doing this. I've gone full, total sea change, like the other way with all of this. And I think a lot of that is like years of just not having anyone to talk to, and now we're suddenly doing like even like we started this episode with you saying how this is your first time doing this, and I'm
Mm,
learning from you. And I think that's the really important thing about us sharing this stuff is that you can take the bits you need. I know I need to get out and be more sociable and move more, and you're sort of sharing us how you can do that because I don't know about you. The bit I really struggled being a sporty person. I wasn't football. I come from different backgrounds, but
yeah.
it's trying to find enjoyment with a lower bar. Did you
Yes.
find that? Like, because
Oh,
if I
yeah.
couldn't do it the way I was doing it, if I couldn't play first team rugby or I couldn't do this, then I didn't want to know. And I
Oh, mate.
still struggled with that a little bit.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think for me, I totally avoided all sport, but like watching it as well. I used to
Yeah,
really
yeah,
massively
yeah,
watch it.
yep,
Like, I'd go play sport, and then I'd be in the pub with friends watching it, all that sort of stuff. And then when this happened, I completely just, I can't, any sort of link to it would just, further remind me. So I had to sort of, almost lose myself in other stuff. And I think my sort of escapism a bit was then my family having a young family, having days out and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
I sort of
yeah,
naturally, I mean, that shift might have happened anyway, right? But I sort of shifted into that. But oh yeah, massively. That took a lot of getting used to for me because I was always really fit. I remember at school, like winning the like the bleep test, and at college and uni,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then hang on a minute, I now, I can't get down the stairs, let
yeah,
alone, even entertain doing that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a real big mental shift. And again, I think being open and, trying to talk that through with people who understand, and what I've sort of done, sort of created around me is I've got people who are, don't have this, but they're like active runners, and there's that football group, and the people who go running will say to me, "Oh, do you want to?" They'll always ask me, "Do you want to come out?" And I'll go at a slower pace, so I won't go very far. So
yeah.
again, being open has sort of created that. But yeah, for me, so frustrating to just know that you're you can't get back to sort of where you were, and
Yeah.
you sort of grieve for it, right?
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
feel like I had a midlife crisis in my 20s. It's like that's
yeah,
how I
yeah,
describe it. It's literally what it felt like, and then you sort of have to get over that. And now I'm turning 40 this year, and I know I'm getting round two, but I'm feeling more sort of prepared for it. I shouldn't go out like buying a sports car or anything this time around, I don't
yeah.
think. But no, it's really important. So thank you for yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I understand. Have you got IS as well? Is
Yeah,
that
ankylosing spondylitis. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
do you
um,
want to tell us a little bit? We've had it, we've talked about it before on the show, but for anyone that's sort of new to it, do you want to maybe explain that and then how that came about?
yeah. So again, so in that diagnosis period, that was that sort of pain in the back, and for me, it was all one and the same. It wasn't really until I sort of got diagnosed that we're like, well, you've got that and this. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, in terms of how it felt, it didn't feel any different to
No. No.
sort of where it is. I guess it's just that sort of specific part, but Um, yeah, so for me, I got diagnosed with that. That was actually one of the things that went with methotrexate quite
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and didn't rear its head until probably maybe a few years ago. But like now, what that means for me is I've got a few sort of sore spots that, you know, I'm nowhere near as flexible as I
Yeah.
sort of was before. And, when I am playing that football, I've got to be massively conscious of sort of that. I don't want to, do any serious damage. But yeah, touch wood, luckily for me, that has not been overly bad, Joel. It's
Yeah.
sort of been sort of
That's good.
everywhere else. But yeah, when that has been bad though, I've had times when that has flared, for one reason or another, and that has caused absolutely horrendous, like leg pain, through like that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
sciatica type
Yeah. From
pain.
stuff going on in your back.
And then alarm bells from the consultant, asking all those questions about your bowel and your bladder. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, well, why are you asking that? That
Yeah.
thought process hadn't even entered my mind that
Yeah.
that could be, quite dangerous and impact,
Yeah.
obviously your spine can impact other things. But yeah, touch wood for me, that hasn't been overly bad. But I have found though, through gentle exercises and stretching, I do a lot of sort of light things in the gym, like resistance stuff, to sort of help stretch my back, and help my core, and that's sort of definitely helped. But and one thing, swimming definitely helps. I found
Yeah.
with but the only thing is caveat, when it's been bad sort of higher up, swimming's then a
Yes,
no go
you
because
can't swim. No, no,
like
you're
get your head
crippled.
out.
And the reason I can relate to this, by the way, just for anyone who's listening or not aware, is like there's a lot of crossover between psoriatic arthritis and AS.
Yeah,
So much so that I was actually diagnosed with AS when I was 14, only to be told in my mid-20s that it was psoriatic arthritis because there was no fusing and stuff like that. But
yeah, got you.
that neck pain is the worst. I would take any other pain my condition throws at me than that neck pain. And yes, swimming. I struggle with cycling as well. I like cycling,
Yeah.
but I can't go out in the wind because anything, I had to sell my motorbike for the same reason, because anything that put pressure on my head, if that triggers that neck pain, well, my wife would tell you I am the worst person to be around.
Yeah,
It's
it is not
horrendous.
nice. That was my shortest ever swim visit. I think anyone watching would have thought, "What's he doing?" Just sort of walk in poolside, get in, do a length, got out, and then back out. Sort of one length
Yeah.
and out.
And
Swim.
did you struggle, like, because you mentioned earlier about the whole, like, they said stop doing this, take it easy. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really struggled with the mixed messages, because especially
yes,
when they thought I had AS, because I very much went from you got to rest, you got a bed rest, you're in a wheelchair, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden you've got to keep moving, move or lose it, all
oh
that
yeah,
sort of stuff. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trying to find a balance is hard work, isn't it?
It's really hard, and you're right. It's definitely mixed messages. Like I had that advice around, don't do things. So I had that in my mind and was very like, oh, I'm gonna really hurt myself if I do anything,
Yeah,
and was kind of had
yeah,
that mentality for a while, and I kept seeing the same person. And then when I then saw someone who stood in for them because for whatever reason they weren't there, their mentality was, oh, take an anti-inflammatory, go out and do some exercise. And I was thinking, well, what? This isn't what I'd sort of been told up to this point. And I think, do you know what? That was the first time I realized that this isn't black and white. There's so much opinion around this stuff, and now everyone's different. And I think that at that point, that was probably a couple of years in, that sort of spurred me on to then do a hell of a lot more research and reading and asking people and asking questions. Versus, I think,
yeah,
you get diagnosed with something, you're like, okay, well, you tell me what to do because you're the sort of pro. I've got no idea. And I think
yeah,
over time I've sort of, you know, come out of that way of thinking. But Yeah, you're right. It's completely mixed messages, and I think as time's gone on, I think the messages I've been more towards exercising. It seems, I don't know if that's just me, but definitely seems to have been a bit of a natural shift. And I definitely see more mention around mental health now versus at the
Yeah.
start of this diagnosis. There
Taken a
was
lot of
absolutely
effort. It's
nothing.
taken a lot of effort, and I must admit, since I started advocating, I've got a better appreciation of it. I used to get really angry about why you're not asking me how I feel, or
Yeah, yeah.
how it's affected my job. But now, because I get to go to conferences or work alongside doctors, we've had doctors on this show. I appreciate now that they're not trained to deal with the answer. They're not equipped. They get seven
No,
minutes or whatever it is with us, and if I go in there and say I'm suicidal, and that has happened before, they don't know what to do with that information. There's no joined up between departments. There's no
no,
referrals. I saw my rheumatologist last year, and they could not refer me to dermatology. It's mad, absolutely mad. And we sit in the middle with things like psoriatic arthritis across multiple disciplines. So yeah, we're getting there, but it's really important that you mention it, and we try to get that mentioned on the show every single week until we see a bit of a sea change. So thank you for bringing that up. And I
no
think
worries.
also as well, just whilst I'm on my advocacy high horse, and sorry, excuse me while I do this, is like we're going through this change as well in the UK at the minute with patient initiated follow up, or PIFU, where they're basically cancelling all routine appointments, and people are now expected to know when to ring up and ask for an appointment. Well, like you just mentioned there, the mixed messages, the whole work and should I be doing this, should I be doing that, how we're supposed to switch from we just sit and nod and do what the doctor tells
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now you're expected to know when to ring up and ask. It's just that it keeps me up at night more than anything. More than anything my son is going through at school or whatever. I know probably bad parent and image there, but you know what I mean? It generally keeps me up. So thank you for mentioning that, because I think it highlights where the pitfalls could be with that, with the changes that are going through. But sorry, very leading question and comment there. But
No, 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 you're fine.
so, like, I suppose for anyone, I'm conscious your time, and it is a Sunday night at the time of recording. But for anyone that's sort of listening to this and sort of inspired, I know I'm certainly motivated. I could already see my partner is in the comments, eyeballing some of the activity stuff you're talking about. And for anyone listening to this, if they're newly diagnosed, or maybe they've been diagnosed a long while and given up, like I certainly went to that place where I thought, well, I can't do anything I enjoy because I can't do it to the level I used to be able to do it at. You got any sort of words for people about, finding things they can do on a level that they can do them, sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah. So again, it's quite a journey you have to go on mentally. I would say, that we've touched on, but I think for me it was lowering that bar and setting sort of new expectations. And with this condition, it's like when it's a bad day, it's a bloody bad day, right? But for me, it's then right. Okay, well, on them bad days, what is it that I can sort of view as success? And that might just be a little walk, locally around the estate, and only a few minutes sort of thing. So that's then that success for that day versus.
Yeah,
And I think what I've tried to do is that when I then am feeling well, or that sort of, again, it's not the old well, but it's sort of that new well
yeah,
that we've all sort of come accustomed to, right? Is then seizing that moment and just getting out there and doing something. And for me, that might be, again, I used to run quite far. I can't do that anymore. So it's more sort of a slower pace jog just to get out there for half an hour. For me, if I can get that done, that's sort of my bar. Um, and then again, if I'm sort of in between, so maybe not having a terrible day, but not at the level I can do that, that might be then for me where I've still got a gym membership at our local gym, so I'll go on sort of the resistance machines, and it's all like sort of light stuff.
yeah,
Um, and the difference I feel, and again, and I wish I'd have known this or even thought of this when I was in that early journey. I feel massively better from doing it. Like that, I could have pain going into that, but then coming out of it, it is better just from moving things. And the other thing, this is a little bit of a nugget that I've found since I lived in Norfolk. That whenever we go to the coast, I always take some trunks and a towel because I guarantee you, swimming in that cold water for like 20
yeah,
minutes, I feel
yeah.
like a new man when I come out.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
funny, is it? Because you sort of associate heat and like I will often reach to heat and things, but like yeah, sometimes that cold has its place, and so I have lots and lots of hot baths, but my skin hates it. If I go and jump in the cold sea, my skin really benefits
Oh,
from it.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, so yeah, I think it's all about it's just adjusting and just setting yourself sort of simple, like, smaller goals. Don't like for me, because I'd always kind of been at a level, which you kind of got to, almost forget that and just start from, just simple things like, a little walk, or then can that turn
Yeah.
into a jog if you're comfortable and that sort of thing. And just setting sort of simple goals. And the one thing I would say is for anyone who's on like the likes of Strava and stuff, I've found at times that can sometimes like impact you sort of mentally as well, because you can see people who are out there smashing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
each week, but you're like, oh God, what I'd give to just run a quarter of that or something like that. So all I'd say is, and if you're going through sort of a bad time, I'd like when I tend to stray off that sort of stuff just because it just doesn't help. So yeah, for me, I'd just say set simple goals, small goals, and just try and gradually work your way up. But then the only thing I would say is that I found is that then you get a really bad flare and you kind of have to start again. So you're kind of on this sort of, in terms of fitness and trying to do activity, you're constantly on this like wave. So that's something that I've gotten used to. Is almost the way I see it, it was like, again, going back to football, but you sort of play a season, you get fitter, and then you drop off, and then you have, your pre-season or whatever, and you get fit again.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's in a really small sort of
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And you have no idea when that might stop and start, right? Because based on flares and stuff. So yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
what I'd say, Joel.
No, it's really good advice. And we actually just created our own Strava group for our community. So
Oh,
for anyone who's
nice.
watching this live, I'll pop the link on there where people can find it. For that same reason, I need a bit of a kick. And if I see somebody doing it and they're having a bad day and they're still moving, then I will move. So yeah, we literally just got that started up. And I think as well, I think the bit you said there about it's like building up, it's like for walking, I for a long while didn't accept just being able to walk as activity, and because I used to play rugby and
Yes.
cycle and all this sort of stuff, I
Yeah.
couldn't see the value in just walking. And I had a really good biologics nurse once that sort of explained to me, yeah, but you can walk, or you can really walk. And they knew how to press my
Yeah.
sort of competitive buttons. And now I do 6 miles a day like it's nothing.
Nice.
But if you'd have said to me 2 years ago, you'll be able to walk 6 miles a day, I'd have bitten your hand off, and I also wouldn't have believed you. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like reframing stuff, isn't it? And once you do that, I think it gets a lot more palatable, and you start having a bit of enjoyment out of it. So yeah, really good points, Craig. Really appreciate you sharing those.
No worries.
Um, I think that's pretty much our time. Like, so I'm always conscious of people on Sundays. I feel like we could have just talked for like another hour. So thank you so much. You definitely don't come across as this is your first time doing this sort of thing, and I'm sure you must be an amazing asset with what you share at work. Please do come back again. And as you're down the road, I feel like we should probably do something in person as well. At least
Yeah, of
grab a drink
course.
at the very least, and moan about living with these things
Yeah.
to feel better about ourselves. Before you go, is there anywhere you want to share or tell people where they could find you if they want to get in touch on social media or anything?
Yeah, so on Twitter it's CY 27. That's probably the best place where I sort of, talk about these things. Yeah, probably just Twitter, mate.
Okay, brilliant. And normally somebody will find that and share it in chat for anyone that's watching live or watching the video back. For anyone that's listening to this on the podcast, you'll find the link to where you can find Craig in the show description. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we finally got around to doing this. It feels like we've sort of been in touch forever on social media, but not realizing we're only 2 miles apart. So thank you so much for joining me quite ridiculously remotely. And maybe next time we'll do it in person. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Joel. Lovely to meet you, mate, and thanks for everything that you do.
Brilliant. No, thank you. And like I say, these conversations really do matter, and they will reach people and help people. And the stuff you've shared is definitely going to make a difference. And I know you've been very popular watching the live chat tonight. So thank you ever so much for your time. And I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Joel. See ya.
Bye bye. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me just bring chat back up. I was trying to share some stuff as best I could at the end there with all the thanks and everything. That was great fun. That felt easy. Like every now and then you'll do one of these chats, it just feels like you already know the person. And yeah, that was easy. And I didn't even look at my list of questions, which tells you everything. So hopefully, guys, I asked what you wanted to hear. And yeah, we'll see if we can do some in-person stuff with Craig, maybe, if he doesn't mind, 'cause he speaks brilliantly, and I'm going to be out of a job if he carries on, because that was great. So guys, thank you. I'm just going back trying to read the chat messages that I missed. If anyone could grab Craig's Twitter handle to share in the chat, that'd be awesome. If not, I'll pop it up at the end. Sai is baiting me about the whole marathon thing. So, long story short, here, guys, we have created a Strava group. Near Cheeks has shared it there on YouTube. Let me just put it up on screen for anyone who missed it. It's basically open to anyone that is in our Discord, or I know if you've been following me on Facebook and talking to me on Facebook for years, then there's not going to be an issue if I recognize the name or whatever. But just to try and keep it safe and not have anyone come in there that might disrupt things, we kind of need to know of you. But if that's the case, or you're a regular on the show every week and we know the name, then please do get involved, because it certainly helped me. So Nia Cheeks has started running. I never thought I'd see the day when Nia Cheeks and I are running at the same time. That's my partner, by the way. In that I used to do loads and loads of running. She used to get breathless going up the stairs. Is that fair to say, Nia? And now she's started running, and I was like, hell no, I'm not I'm not watching that happen. And so I never thought we'd get a time where we were running together, and it's awesome. I've enjoyed it so much, but unfortunately I have now got the bug again, and even though I'm only running like 2 miles and I'm still getting lots of problem with my feet, like you heard Craig talk about. That is a big problem with PSA. It's fair but rude. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That, I have now got to make sure I wind myself in, because I'm already thinking, well, maybe I could do 10K, but I've done them before. Maybe we could do a half marathon, and Nia's like pumping the brakes massively, trying to stop me getting carried away. Because this is always my thing. I'm terrible. I talk about pacing every week on this show, and then I don't practice what I preach, and I very much go boom and bust. But no, yeah. So we got our community meet up in Brighton in a couple of weeks, guys. We definitely need to do a little run on the beach one morning, especially if we've been drinking the night before, or not really portraying the most healthiest management choices of our conditions whilst we're out that weekend. So we'll go for a little run on the beach. That'd be awesome. And a big thank you to all the new people in chat tonight, guys. Thank you. I know it's not always easy to say something in a new channel or around people you're not sort of familiar with. So a huge thank you to so many new people getting involved in chat. I tried to feature as much as I can, guys, but obviously I don't want to distract my attention away from the guest too much. But thank you so much. If you haven't already, please do follow or subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube or whatever platform. We're currently going out on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as YouTube. But please do hit that like, follow, whatever the relevant equivalent button is. That'd be awesome. But yeah, guys, chat when we're live makes a huge difference, and has certainly made a huge difference to our numbers tonight. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's not for me, it's for our guests. Like, it's really important that we get the stories out there. I know, when I was an 18-year-old sitting in those waiting rooms full of people that were far, far older than me, with posters on the wall of people that were far, far older than me, if I would have heard of Craig back then, I would have made better decisions. And I just know that. And that's why we do it. I would have moved more. I would have opened up more. I would have shared more, rather than try and live this life where I just hid this thing. I'd play sport on a Saturday and spend all day Sunday locked in my house dying. And I mean, when I say locked in, I'm not even exaggerating. Friends would knock on the door and I'd be lying in an ice bath in pain on painkillers and not answer it, because I couldn't explain who this person was if I'd have answered the door, because I hadn't, let them in. How could I have a peer support network if I didn't, understand and accept the condition myself? So 18-year-old me, if I'd have heard what Craig was saying tonight, would have made a whole load of difference. So guys, thank you for helping us reach more people. The number's been amazing tonight, and talking whilst we're live in chat is a big factor in that. The algorithm shouldn't be the case, but we unfortunately don't live in a fair world. So thank you for helping with that. Thank you for all the lovely comments that have come in. You absolutely know what I'm talking about, Sai. And I should say a big shout out to Sai for the gifted memberships on, I nearly said subs, they're called subs on Twitch. YouTube calls them memberships, just to keep people like me tied up in knots. So I thank you so much for the gifted membership. We get no sponsorship, guys. You see no ads on the show. If you're watching it back on YouTube are going to chuck ads on it, but we don't have any ads. We don't have any sponsorship. We do this all willingly, out of our own pocket, and we will continue to do so. But those of you that do, support us by being a Twitch subscriber or a YouTube member, makes a massive difference, and just helps us keep improving. And Nia Cheeks will be the first to tell you that it just goes back into, okay, I could make the audio better. Anyone who listens to the podcast, by the way, guys, go and listen to the podcast, the latest episode. and compare it to 4, 5, 6 episodes ago, and hopefully you'll hear, we've upgraded the microphone. We now got an editor because I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was just making up as I went along. So we're trying to make a better show. Oh, and Nia Cheeks has just shared Craig's Twitter handle there. Let know. So I got in there and accidentally shared the wrong thing on screen. There we go. So if anyone didn't catch that earlier, you can find Craig there with CY27. And I probably should have spelled it out, Nia, because I thought the same as well. So I probably should have spelled it out. So yeah, go check out Craig there. If you haven't done already. No worries, Amy. It's not a problem. Like I say, we've been away for a couple of weeks, but we're back now. So guys, excuse me while I bring up this tab. I've put a request into my booking website that it needs to have a dark mode because this lights me up like a Christmas tree. But it's the only way I can see that what we've got coming up, and with brain fog, I ain't remembering. So guys, on the 28th of April, we have Joe Davies, who's joining us from ASIF. They are like the global axial spondyloarthritis. I think it's axial spondyloarthritis International Federation. She's the assistant director, which would be awesome. Be joining us on the 28th. On the 5th of May, I can't believe we're going to be in May already. 5th of May, Nia, I am home on the 5th of May, aren't I, from our community meetup? I might have made a boo-boo there. I might have booked a guest for Sunday night when I'm in Brighton Sunday morning. Oh, well, we'll have to have some Pro Plus and we'll get through it. We'll get through it. But yeah, Vanessa will be joining us, who is an AMR, antimicrobial resistance patient survivor, and the executive director of UK charity AMR Narrative. Yeah, we will. Oh, gosh. I'm normally quite good at my scheduling, but I've messed up there. It's fine. The show will go on. And then on the 19th of May, Amanda Green will be coming back to us, aka Lupus Lady, you might remember from last May. I don't know how you would have forgotten. She was the lady that turned up with a load of slime and danced and wore hats and basically done a load of costume changes. Wonderful woman, very LA, I think it's probably fair to say. And I just sat here and just, you know what, Amanda? You do your advocacy in the very unique style that you do, and we'll be entertained. So I can't see how you would have forgotten Amanda, but Amanda will be back for Lupus Awareness Month. And the usual reminder, guys, is that next month is extremely busy. We'll try and cover as many topics as we can, but every single May, it's Arthritis Awareness Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and Lupus Awareness Month, which when you're an autoimmune patient advocate, means I'm very busy. We'll try and get as many stories in as possible. We're going to be releasing some podcast episodes from previous guests that relate to those subjects if we can't get people on the show that tick that box. But Amanda's coming back to talk about lupus. We're going to try and get some mental health. If anyone's watching this live or watching it back, who's from a mental health background, either a patient org, medical professional, advocate, anyone doing good work to try and improve people's outcomes, living with these conditions, that wants to talk about mental health, please do get in touch and we'll try and squeeze that in for May. But I think that's probably it. I've now got to go and bang my head against the wall, realizing my scheduling my scheduling error. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It pretty much sums up how my advocacy's been the last couple of weeks. Like in the last week alone, what's happened? We've had that WebMD video come out. If anyone's not watched that, by the way, go check it out. I think I put it at the top of the links there if you scan that code. It's been nominated for awards already, which is amazing. Basically talks about why we do all the live stream and stuff. WebMD approached us to do a film about that, which is awesome. Really personal and emotive, and intentionally trying to sort of have an impact. It's a bit of a trigger warning with that one, that we do talk a little bit about mental health and suicide and things like that. Go check out that video. But we've been in Chelmsford for 7 awards things. We've been in Brussels doing talks at UCP's headquarters. It's been a blur, and it looks like it's just going to carry on that way. But it's got to be a good thing, right, guys? Because if we're busy, we're hopefully reaching people. And Craig's comments on that subject was amazing earlier. So that's definitely filled my cup up and re-energized me for another couple of weeks. But yeah, I might I might need some pick me ups or something for that May the 5th or whenever it is. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to all the new chatters. Thank you for everyone that made all the new people feel welcome. You are a wonderful bunch. Like I say, we're always a peer support community first and foremost. Really appreciate your support. And until next time, guys, enjoy what's left of your weekend, and I hope Monday is kind to you. See you soon. Bye bye.